This topic keeps surfacing. Should you pay your house with your CPF or not? Some people advocate, do not pay house with CPF, use cash. But some people say, I'm cash strapped, I need to pay my house with my CPF, if not I have nothing left to eat. That's why today in this tutorial, I'll give you two case studies. The first is if you are someone younger, age of 30, bought a 500,000 HDB flat, and using your CPF to pay, I'll show you things you need to consider. The second scenario is you are slightly older, age of 40, bought a condo at $1 million, what you need to prioritize. Many angles to things, especially when it comes to CPF, should you transfer to special account, what you need to consider in terms of tax, and last but not least, accrued interest. I'll address it once and for all. Just as a teaser, I think it's a moot point and I'll address it head on in a while. And with that, let's roll in the intro video. Hi guys, welcome back. Now in today's tutorial, I'll run through two scenarios and hopefully one of them fits you a bit closer. And just in case the other one is not what you're looking at right now in live stage, maybe you have something else in terms of questions or life experience that you want to share, leave them in the comment sections. So without further ado, let's run with the first scenario. You are age of 30, just started working for a few years, CPF, there is cash savings not much, and you actually just bought a HDB flat worth $500,000. Your CPFOA, because you're earning $4,000, is $920 from your salary itself. And if you're not familiar, let me show you this table. 23% is contributed to your CPFOA. And you realize that as you go to a different age group, that amount drops. That's why I'll be covering scenario 2 with a different number in a while. And at age of 30, you don't have too much of savings because you're still pretty junior in terms of rank. You just had a wedding. You spend money quite a few places already. I do get it, you need the CPF to pay for down payment. And for HDB, you can actually use up to 10% of your CPF to fully make down payments. And for a 500,000 flat, how much would that be? That would actually be 50,000, and we also need to factor in basic stamp duty. Basic stamp duty, if you haven't seen before, this is the table. And a simple calculation or a backhand rule is actually using 3% minus $5,400. So if your house is $500,000, you realize that your basic stamp duty is actually $9,600. Later, I'll use these numbers to calculate accrued interest for you to see. So you actually use your CPF for down payment and basic stamp duty. And what else can you use your CPF? You can use your CPF to pay off housing protection scheme. You can use your CPF to pay on legal fees also. So there are a few places, but the bulk of it is actually in down payment as well as basic stamp duty. Now with that, let me give you 3 reasons why you should use your CPF to pay for your house. The first is you need to understand that you need to pay renovation costs, correct? When you buy a BTO, it's bare. You need to spend renovation costs $50,000 to $70,000. That's a common ballpark figure. And that, if you take a loan, is going to be very expensive. So much rather use your CPF to pay off for the housing down payment and then use your cash to fix any renovation that you might need. You also need furniture in any case, and that usually amounts to $5,000 to $10,000 just to get the place up. Beds, sofa, aircon, orders, you name it. The second is you may want to start a business in some point in future. When you are younger, it's quite possible to entertain the idea a bit more. Myself, I actually started an ice cream business. If you have followed this channel, you kind of know I've shared some stories. I started my ice cream business at the age of 26. And at that point of time, I used my cash that I made from financial markets to actually set up a store at Bishan itself selling ice cream. But long story short, the business failed. But in any case, when you're young, you typically want to make sure you have no life regrets, to see if you can build assets that can help you in your retirement. So when it comes to starting business, you realize that you need cash. And if you conserve your cash from housing, you might have that opportunity to start a business. The third reason is you want to financial independence, retire early, and hopefully do it at the age of 40. What do you realize? CPF only pays out 55 and later, correct? If you're serious about FIRE, you realize that you need cash. And that's why if your housing can be settled with your CPF, you can conserve your cash flow and use it for investments. And with that, I'd like to highlight a key point also. If your income is $4,000, in Singapore, I believe that it's very difficult to reach financial independence with that number. You need to find ways to grow your income, either through climbing corporate ladder well, or any other way, which includes sales, side hustles, etc. etc. And if you agree with any of these 3 points, smash the like button. It gives me some feedback that I'm on the right track with you. And with that, I'd also like to address, consider investing your surplus CPF after you have started a house into the financial markets itself. You're young at the point of 30, which means you can potentially take on equity risk. And with that, I'd actually like to address another key point commonly brought up, which is, can someone at the age of 30 consider transferring OA to SA? It is, in my opinion, not a good idea, and here's why. Yes, it is true that in CPF SA you get 4% versus 2.5% at OA, and when you compound that 1.5% increment over time, you get a much bigger amount down the years. But there are things you need to consider. The first is that you are now young. You are not too sure if you are going to upgrade your house in future or not. If you move your OA to SA, it's a one-way ticket, and SA cannot help you in your future housing dreams, for example. The second is that you are very far from the age of 55, which means that monies locked up in CPF really cannot be deployed to anywhere else. Someone who is closer to the age of 55, if they do their financial planning correctly, can tap on CPF and still have access to it in a couple of years, which means the horizon to seeing it is quite near. But at this point of time, you might need to really prioritize flexibility. And in the next segment, I'll touch on tax-related ideas, and you'll realize a bit deeper why transferring OA to SA might hinder you down the years. So I've covered so far. If you are in this scenario, age of 30, income $4,000, maybe it is better to pay off your mortgage with CPF. And that's why we're going to get into this whole big concept of accrued interest. You know, property agents, I think they harp about it quite a bit too much. And I feel it's actually a moot point. And why is it so? The first is that if you are buying your house right now, this 500,000 house, and you're going to live there for the next 40, 50 years to your retirement, then accrued interest or not, it doesn't really matter. You're not selling the house. It doesn't come in the picture at all. Accrued interest is a concept whereby you use your CPFOA to pay for your housing needs, and that opportunity cost of 2.5% that should be earned with your OA will have to be returned when you sell the house. Again, it's when you sell the house. So if you're going to live there for the rest of your life, first house and last house, it doesn't even matter at all. The second reason why it's a moot point is because if you do indeed upgrade your house, you sell this first house, what happens is that the accrued interest will just go back to your CPF. There is just less cash that you can cash out from the property sale itself. Not that the money actually disappears, it's just it goes back more to your CPF OA. And let me give you some actual numbers to things. You know, just now we mentioned down payment $50,000, and you actually pay a basic stamp duty of $9,600. So all in all, you expended $59,600. Assuming for the rest of the mortgage you use cash, you don't use CPF to pay at all. I simplify the equation. How much interest is actually accrued from this $59,600 that's used right now, assuming you sell a house in 10 years time? That amount of interest is just $16,637.02. Which means that, for example, you sell the house at $600,000 10 years down the road. You realize that the first thing that needs to be repaid is the loan. Luckily, now you're selling at a profit, so the loan should be covered. Then up next is the CPF that you use, and then also the accrued interest, this $16,900 plus. Then you can finally cash out whatever that remains. So property adverts might say, hey, the amount you can cash out is so much less. This $16,900 is such a waste. But actually it's not true. If you had used your CPF OA to pay for the $59,600, you have saved up that equivalent amount in cash because you're supposed to pay for the house anyway. So if that $59,600 is invested with cash, I think it's not difficult to derive $16,000 in profits using your cash investments. So there's actually no difference whether there's accrued interest or not. The third reason why accrued interest is a moot point is that the opportunity of earning interest in CPF is always there. Now at this point of time, if you use your CPF to pay for the house, in future you guys do a CPF housing refund, and that amount can actually be pumped back into your CPF OA. Net wise in future, there could be really no difference. So all in all, when you're young and do not have spare cash, it's actually okay to use your CPF to pay for your housing needs. But along the years, as you progress and build up your cash, you should think of things a little bit different. That's why we go to scenario number 2. Scenario number 2, you are right now age of 40, earning $8,000 a month, and you bought a private property worth $1 million. Should you use your CPF to pay for it or not? These are some key points to consider. The first is that this is a private property and you now need to take out a bank loan, which means 25% down payment, of which 20% can be used from your CPF OA. So that number works out to be $200,000. Next, your basic stamp duty, which is 3% less $5,400, and that figure works out to be $24,600. After I'll pause a bit and highlight to you that if your property is above $1 million, you realize that the tax rate is slightly higher because any amounts above 1 million is going to be taxed at 4%. So all in all, you can use 200,000 for down payment and then 24,600 for your basic stamp duty. And at this point in your career, it's very likely you built up quite a bit in your CPF already. Maybe you are even upgrading your house, selling your house, and now that first house proceeds has funneled quite a bit back into your CPFOA. But at this point of time, I want you to consider using cash instead of your CPF to pay for your housing needs. The reason is this: if at this stage in life you do not have much surplus cash, it is very likely you're not on track for a good retirement. This house that you have purchased is a stretch financially, and that your CPFOA contribution amounts are actually going to drop in the subsequent years ahead. Again, I'll flashback this summary table which shows the CPFOA contribution. At this point of time with 8,000 salary, your OA contribution is $1,260. But take note, after age of 45, it drops to $1,140. And there are many stories of many Singaporeans who are asset rich and cash poor. And the reason is that they've used their CPF to purchase a house that could have been slightly above their budget. And when it comes to retirement, they are faced with a hard choice of potentially needing to downgrade. That is why I'd like you to think very carefully on your financial standing. If you really need your CPF to pay for the housing, perhaps the budget for the house is not comfortable. In any case, in the 40s, that's where typically most Singaporeans face a risk of retrenchment. So if you agree, smash the like button and I'll give you a bit more details. If at this point of time you have excess cash in bank accounts, you do know that they are deriving next to nothing in terms of interest, correct? Why not deploy them towards your housing needs and keep your CPF OA there to get that 2.5%? I've seen many private clients, because of the old system, they've been using their CPF OA to pay for the house. And then they've been building up big amounts of cash, a few $100,000 in cash. And my first question is, why not stop that OA contribution towards the house and start depleting the cash you have in the bank? And now that you're 40, it's probably a good time to think about retirement seriously. This 15 years runway is important for you to calculate what is your projected CPF OA. Any amounts above the full retirement sum is potentially cash that you can tap on. And that leads to the next topic, which is, should you transfer some of your OA to SA if you are somewhere age of 40? On this channel I've shared before, in my previous years I used to transfer OA to SA. And that's because my SA is at a very low amount for someone at my age. So it's still okay, my SA has not yet hit the full retirement sum cap. And I can still use RSTU, Retirement Sum Topping Up Scheme, to add in 7,000 at least to my SA to get tax relief. But on the other hand, if your SA is close to the full retirement sum already, if you transfer OA to SA now, you block up that potential opportunity of contributing to your SA and getting tax relief. And especially now when you're earning 8,000 per month, your tax bracket is slightly higher than before. And moving forward in years ahead, you're probably going to pay even higher tax as you progress to a later stage of your career. So hopefully I've given you a very holistic perspective. When you're young, it's actually okay to use your CPF to pay for a house. When you're older, maybe think twice, because your CPF is very important, because you should have built up some cash and that you're actually closer to 55 than before. And that CPF that you built up for yourself could come into a financial play pretty soon. With that, I thank you for watching till here. Smash or subscribe if you like topics on retirement planning and investments. And I'd like to introduce you to two of my previous videos. The first is something regarding tax planning. What are certain methods you can reduce your personal tax? The second is a concept I've pioneered, semi-retirement. If you're now age of 30s, 40s, semi-retirement is a phase whereby you work not mainly for the income, but for a purpose in your life. So if you've heard of that concept, invite you to that video also. And with that, have a good day ahead. Take care and goodbye.